When you look at the world today, everyone is trying to win more money, win more followers, win more fame. But here's the truth, no one wants to say out loud. You can have everything and still feel empty if you don't have the right foundation. The title of this talk is simple. Put God first. It's not a slogan, it's a strategy. Because when you build your life around everything but God, everything eventually collapses. But when you build it around Him, even when life shakes, you don't fall apart. Let's start with foundation over fortune. Everyone wants the fortune. Few focus on the foundation. But here's the thing. Fortune can disappear overnight. The foundation is what keeps you standing. When the lights go out, when the applause fades, when no one's watching, I've seen people climb to the top of their game, make millions, get attention, and yet they're miserable. Why? Because their life is built on sand, ego, greed, validation. But when you put God first, your foundation changes. You stop chasing things that don't last. You start chasing purpose. You start asking, what am I building that will outlive me? That's where real success begins. Not in your bank account, but in your belief system. Then comes discipline over desire. The world tells you to follow. Follow your heart. Do what feels right. But what if your heart is lying to you? What if your desires are temporary, but your calling is eternal? Putting God first means you live by principle, not emotion. You don't wait to feel ready. You act out of obedience. Discipline means you pray when you don't feel like it. You forgive when it's hard. You stay humble. When success tries to make you arrogant. Everyone loves the idea of winning, but few are willing to live with divine discipline. Because discipline isn't about control, it's about freedom. It's the ability to say, I serve something higher than my impulses. That's the kind of mindset that separates those who burn out from those who break through. Purpose over popularity. The crowd will always try to pull you toward what's trending. They'll say, do this, say that, don't offend anyone. But if you spend your life trying to please everyone, you'll end up pleasing no one, not even yourself. Putting God first means being okay with being misunderstood. It means being grounded in what's right, not what's popular. You're not called to fit in, you're called to stand out. Look at every great leader who ever made a lasting impact. They weren't driven by applause, they were driven by assignment. They understood that purpose comes with pressure. And when you put God first, you stop living for likes and start living for legacy. And finally, faith over fear. The enemy of greatness isn't failure, it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of not being enough. But faith says, even if I can't see the full path, I'll take the next step. You might not know how it all works out, but you know who's guiding you. When you live with faith, your mindset changes from why is this happening to me to what is this teaching me? Every setback becomes set up for something greater. Fear makes you play defense. Faith makes you play offense. Faith doesn't mean everything will be easy. It means you'll never be alone. So when I say put God first, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about order. If He's not first, everything else is out of order. Put Him first in your business, in your family, in your health, in your goals. Seek His wisdom before you make decisions. Thank Him when you win. Trust Him when you lose. Because if you can trust Him in the process, He'll trust you with the promise. You want to win in life. Start where real winners start, on your knees with gratitude and humility, because everything you have can disappear, but who you become in the process, that's eternal. Fortune fades, fame fades, feelings fade, but when you put God first, your life becomes unshakable. So build the foundation, master your discipline, live your purpose, and walk by faith, not fear. That's how you stop chasing the world and start leading it. Put God first, and everything else will find its place. Everyone wants success. Everyone wants the cars, the house, the lifestyle, the respect. But here's what most people never stop to ask. What's underneath it all? What's holding it up? Because if your foundation isn't strong, your fortune will destroy you faster than failure ever could. Foundation over fortune isn't about rejecting success. It's about redefining it. It's about understanding that true wealth isn't what you hold in your hands, it's what you hold in your heart. When you build your life purely around money, power, or status, you're building on sand. One wave of adversity, one bad decision, one betrayal, and it all collapses. But when your foundation is built on principles, values, and faith, no storm can take that away. The people who last the longest aren't the ones who got lucky. They're the ones who built deep. They spend years developing character before chasing recognition. They understood that you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead others if you're broken inside. You can't create something meaningful if you haven't built stability within yourself. When you put God first, you start seeing success differently. You stop measuring it by numbers and start measuring it by impact. You stop asking how much can I get and start asking how much can I give. That shift in mindset changes everything. Suddenly your decisions aren't driven by greed but by growth. You stop cutting corners, you stop compromising your integrity for short-term wins, and you start building something that lasts. You stop being a slave to outcomes because you're anchored to purpose. Think about this. Every skyscraper that stands tall today first spent years underground. They dug deep before they built high. That's the same with your life. The deeper your roots, the higher you can rise. But too many people want the view from the top without building the structure that can hold the weight. That's why some people reach success and then fall apart. They didn't do the internal work. They built fast, not strong. Foundation is character, discipline, humility, faith, consistency. It's how you handle pressure, how you treat people when you have nothing, and how you treat people when you have everything. Foundation is what happens in private before the spotlight ever finds you. The problem is our world rewards the fortune before the foundation. It praises results before process. And that's why so many people end up rich but restless, successful but empty. If you want peace that lasts longer than the paycheck, build with God as your architect. Let Him set the blueprint for your life. Because when you build on His word, His timing, and His truth, you won't have to chase blessings. They'll find you. Your life becomes stable not because you control everything, but because you trust the one who does. So foundation over fortune isn't about rejecting ambition. It's about aligning ambition with purpose. It's saying, I'll build wealth, but I won't let wealth build me. It's saying, I'll pursue success, but not at the cost of my soul. Because a solid foundation doesn't limit how high you go. It guarantees you stay there. And when you build your foundation on God, no amount of pressure, fame, or failure can shake it. That's how real legacy is built. Discipline over desire is one of the hardest principles to live by, but it's also one of the most powerful. Desire feels good in the moment, but discipline builds something that lasts beyond the moment. Desire makes promises it can't keep. It tells you that comfort, pleasure, and convenience are the goal, but discipline knows the truth. Nothing great is ever built in comfort. Everything that lasts, everything that matters, comes from doing what's right, not what feels right. When you put God first, you start realizing how often desire tries to control your decisions. You want to react instead. They respond. You want to quit when it gets hard. You want shortcuts, approval, instant results, but discipline says no. Discipline says not today. It's the ability to stay loyal to your long-term vision when your emotions scream for instant gratification. It's waking up early when you'd rather sleep. It's doing the work no one sees. It's saying no to things that could take you off course, even if no one else would know. Most people fail not because they don't have potential, but because they can't master their impulses. They let temporary emotions make permanent decisions. They trade purpose for pleasure, vision for validation, progress for comfort. Discipline is what separates those who dream from those who deliver. Because dreams are cheap, but discipline is expensive. It costs you comfort, ego, and excuses, and that's why so few people have it. Putting God first in this area changes the entire game. Discipline becomes more than self-control. It becomes spiritual alignment. You're not just saying no to bad habits, you're saying yes to a higher standard. You're saying, I'm not living by my feelings, I'm living by my faith. God doesn't bless chaos, He blesses consistency. And discipline is what creates that consistency. It's how you show God you can be trusted with more. Think about athletes, entrepreneurs, or leaders who dominate their field. It's not talent that makes them unstoppable. It's discipline. They do the boring things with excellence. They show up when they don't feel like it. They operate by standards, not moods. Now imagine that same mindset applied to your faith, your relationships, your purpose. You become unshakable. You stop drifting through life and start directing it. Desire wants the reward without the responsibility. It wants results without the process. But discipline understands that the process is the reward because it shapes you into the kind of person who can handle what you're praying for. Desire might get you started, but discipline keeps you going. And that's why so many people quit halfway. They started with emotion, not commitment. Every time you choose discipline over desire, you strengthen your character. You silence the noise inside you that says, take the easy way out. You start realizing that comfort isn't your friend, it's your cage. And every act of discipline breaks a bar in that cage. It gives you freedom from addiction, fear, laziness, and self-doubt. Freedom to live intentionally, not emotionally. When you live this way, your focus sharpens, your time becomes sacred. You stop comparing yourself to others because you're too busy mastering yourself. You begin to understand that success isn't built in big moments. It's built in small decisions made daily. Decisions like praying instead of complaining, working instead of wishing, forgiving instead of fighting, growing instead of gossiping. Discipline over desire is how you prove to God that you're serious about your calling. It's how you show that you can be trusted with more because you've learned to manage what you already have. Anyone can act right when it's easy, but true strength is doing what's right when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when it feels like nothing is changing. That's when God is testing your faith, your patience, your perseverance. So remember this. Desire is loud, but discipline is loyal. Desire fades, discipline endures. And if you want to build a life that doesn't crumble when temptation knocks, choose discipline every time because desire gives you moments, but discipline gives you mastery. And mastery over self, over emotion, over temptation is where divine success begins. Purpose over popularity is one of the defining choices of your life. Every day, you're faced with two paths. Do what's easy and admired, or do what's hard and meaningful. Popularity is about perception. Purpose is about truth. Popularity fades when people's opinions shift, but purpose remains steady because it's anchored in something eternal. When you put God first, your mission becomes more important than your image. You stop living for applause and start living for alignment. The world will always try to pull you toward what's trending. It wants you to fit in, stay quiet, and never offend anyone. But purpose doesn't care about trends, cares about impact. Purpose will make you stand alone when everyone else is playing it safe. It will make you say what others are afraid to say. It will push you to keep moving when no one is cheering. Because when you know what you're called to do, you don't need validation. You need conviction. Most people never fulfill their purpose because they're too distracted by popularity. They crave attention more than authenticity. They measure their worth by likes, followers, or applause, instead of the quiet confidence that comes from doing what's right. But popularity is shallow. It's here today, gone tomorrow. It's like chasing shadows. The moment you reach for it, it disappears. Purpose, on the other hand, gives you roots. It gives you direction. It reminds you why you started in the first place. Putting God first changes the scoreboard. It's no longer about who notices you, but about who you're serving. You begin to realize that purpose is not about being seen. It's about making a difference. It's not about being known by the world. It's about being known by God. Sometimes that means being overlooked, misunderstood, or even criticized. But the reward of purpose isn't people's approval. It's peace. You sleep better at night knowing you stayed true to your calling, even when it costs you something. Look at anyone who's ever left a lasting impact. They weren't chasing popularity. They were chasing purpose. They stood firm in their beliefs. When the crowd booed, they made tough choices that didn't make sense in the moment, but made history in the long run. That's the difference between living for the crowd and living for the cause. One gives you a moment of applause. The other gives you a lifetime of meaning. Popularity feeds the ego, but purpose feeds the soul. The ego wants attention, control, and recognition. The soul wants contribution, meaning, and growth. When you put God first, your ego starts to shrink and your clarity expands. You stop needing to prove yourself because you realize you're already chosen. You stop chasing approval because you know who sent you. That's freedom. Freedom from the pressure to perform. Freedom from the need to please everyone. Freedom from the constant noise of comparison. There's a moment in every person's life when they have to decide, am I going to live for applause or am I going to live for assignment? One will make you popular for a season. The other will make you impactful for a lifetime. The world might celebrate you one day and cancel you the next. But when your purpose comes from God, it doesn't matter who's clapping or who's criticizing. You stay steady, you keep walking, you keep building. Purpose over popularity means choosing principles over performance. It means doing what's right, even when no one's watching. It means speaking truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It means being okay with being the only one standing because you know you're standing for something that matters. The truth is popularity can open doors, but purpose builds kingdoms. So if you want to live a life that actually means something, stop chasing attention and start chasing assignments. Stop asking, who's watching me? And start asking, who am I serving? When you live that way, you won't need to be noticed to feel valuable. You'll know your value comes from the one who gave you your purpose in the first place. And that's when you stop following the crowd and start leading it. Because real influence doesn't come from being liked, it comes from being aligned. Faith over fear is the ultimate test of trust. It's easy to talk about faith when everything is going your way, when the doors are opening, when life feels predictable, but true faith shows up when nothing makes sense, when the plan falls apart, when you're standing in the dark with no guarantee of what's next. Fear tells you to stay where it's safe. Faith tells you to step where you can't see. Fear whispers, what if you fail? Faith answers, what if this is exactly what I was made for? When you put God first, faith becomes your foundation, not your backup plan. You stop relying on what you can control and start trusting in who's in control. That shift changes everything. You stop panicking over what you can't fix and start focusing on what you can build. You stop worrying about outcomes and start walking in obedience because faith isn't blind. It sees what fear can't. It sees possibility where fear sees problems. It sees purpose where fear sees pain. Fear is a liar. It feeds off your doubts, magnifies your insecurities, and convinces you that your future is limited by your past. It makes you settle for less, hide your potential, and avoid the uncomfortable. But faith does the opposite. Faith stretches you. It pushes you beyond logic, beyond comfort, beyond what people think is possible. It says, I don't need to know how. It's enough to know who. Faith is what gives you peace in chaos, strength in weakness, and courage when everything inside you wants to quit. The truth is, you can't have both faith and control. You have to choose. Fear needs control to survive, but faith thrives in surrender. When you surrender your timeline, your expectations, and your fears to God, you make room for miracles. You stop forcing things to happen and start flowing in divine timing. And when you do that, life stops being a battle of anxiety and becomes a journey of trust. Look at every great move of God in history. It all started with someone choosing faith over fear. Noah built the ark before the rain. Moses walked into Pharaoh's court with nothing but a staff. David faced Goliath with a sling and a stone. Every one of them had reasons to be afraid, but they moved anyway. That's what faith is, movement. It's doing what you're called to do even when you don't feel ready. It's believing that obedience is more powerful than certainty. Fear will always be louder in moments of transition. It will tell you that you're not qualified, that you're too late, that you don't have what it takes. But faith reminds you that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. If He gave you the vision, He'll give you the provision. If He opened the door, He'll give you the strength to walk through it. Fear focuses on what's missing. Faith focuses on who's with you. The difference between people who live small and those who live bold is an opportunity. It's mindset. Fear makes you play defense. Faith makes you play offense. Fear makes you run from giants. Faith makes you face them. Fear keeps you stuck analyzing the risk. Faith moves because it knows that standing still is the bigger risk. When you choose faith over fear, you don't deny reality. You redefine it. You stop asking, what if I lose? And start declaring, what if I win? You stop seeing obstacles as signs to stop and start seeing them as signs you're getting closer to your purpose. Fear is temporary. Faith is eternal. Fear ends where faith begins. So the next time fear tries to speak louder than your faith, remind yourself who brought you this far. You didn't come this far by accident. You came this far by grace. And the same God who carried you here will carry you forward. Faith doesn't promise an easy road. It promises a guided one. It doesn't eliminate challenges. It gives you the strength to overcome them. Faith over fear isn't just a phrase. It's a lifestyle. It's the decision to trust God's plan even when you don't understand it, to move forward even when you're trembling, to believe that your story isn't over because fear tried to stop you. Every great comeback starts with faith. Every victory begins with trust. So don't let fear write your story. Let faith lead it, because when faith is first, fear loses its power. And when you live that way, you don't just survive life, you conquer it. At the end of the day, everything you've ever wanted in life, peace, purpose, direction, fulfillment, comes down to one thing: order. When God is not first, everything else is out of order. You can chase money, you can chase relationships, you can chase recognition, but if God isn't at the center, it will never be enough. Putting Him first doesn't mean life gets easier. It means life gets aligned. It means you stop living in constant reaction and start living with divine intention. When you choose foundation over fortune, you build something storms can't destroy. When you choose discipline over desire, you create consistency that emotions can't shake. When you choose purpose over popularity, you find peace that applause can't buy. And when you choose faith over fear, you unlock courage that failure can't take away. That's the real secret. When you put God first, everything else falls into place. So stop chasing what's temporary and start investing in what's eternal. Let your life be more than success. Let it be significance. Build deep roots before you try to reach great heights. Let your actions speak louder than your desires. Be bold enough to walk in your calling, even when the world doesn't understand it. And trust that the same God who gave you your vision will give you everything you need to fulfill it. You want to live a life that can't be shaken? Put God first in your thoughts, your habits, your business, your relationships, your decisions. Put Him at the top. Because when He's first, you'll never be last. You'll never be lost. You'll never be empty. You'll walk with purpose, lead with strength, and live with peace. And one day when you look back, you'll realize everything you built lasted not because of what you had, but because of who you built it with. So whatever you do from this day forward, put God first.